Welcome, fellow crime and mystery enthusiasts, to Crime After Dark, where the unthinkable becomes reality and the sinister secrets are unveiled. If you're ready to take the chance of not being able to go to sleep tonight, then stay for the rest of the video and make sure to like and subscribe at the end. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom here. Amidst the intrigue and evil, we'll share insights and maybe even crack a smile or two amidst the darkness. Because in a world where the unimaginable becomes reality, a little bit of lightness can be the key to sanity. So hit that subscribe button and prepare for an emotion-fueled roller coaster ride through the most mind-bending crime is imaginable. The man you are looking at on your screen's name is Gerald Stano, a man that has admitted to killing 41 people, but the police say he has killed at least 88. Stano, born as Paul Zeininger on September 12, 1951, in Schenectady, New York, the fifth child born to his mother, but the third she put up for adoption. His biological mom neglected him so bad that when she gave him up for adoption at 6 months old, the county doctors said that he could not be adopted. They claimed Zeininger was functioning on an animalistic level, even eating his own faces to survive. Zeininger had 4 biological siblings who were given up for adoptions too. A nurse named Norma Stano ended up adopting Zeininger. Then she legally changed his name. Although his foster parents were said to be very loving, Stano continued to have extreme behavioral problems. He'd wet the bed every night until he was about 10. In school, he earned C's and D's in all subjects except music. It seems he was very talented. He'd also lied compulsively and was once caught stealing money from his father's wallet. Rumored it was to pay members of the track and field team to finish behind him so he would not be viewed as just a failure. As a young teen, Stano was bullied often. At the age of 14, he was arrested for the first time for a false fire alarm and later arrested again for throwing rocks at cars from a highway bridge. Stano did not graduate high school until he was 21. However, after receiving his diploma, he enrolled in a computer school, graduated, and began working in a local hospital. Soon after he was hired, he was fired for stealing from co-workers. After moving with his parents to Ormond Beach, Florida, he kept getting fired from one job after another, mostly for stealing or being late. He also once impregnated a mentally disabled girl. Stano's parents ended up paying for the girl to have an abortion, though. I think we are all thinking the same thing right now. He is a real weirdo. Okay, back to the story. At the age of 23, Stano began dating a woman, and the pair ended up getting engaged. During the time period leading up to the wedding, Stano was arrested for check fraud, so his fiancée's family wrote to the judge asking him to be released from jail early so he could get married. The judge ultimately agreed. The marriage only lasted about 13 months. Stano, unbeknownst to his wife and everyone else, had already begun killing teen girls and women. He oftenly go home with blood on his clothes and inside his car. Stano would find himself in trouble with the law again when he was arrested on March 25, 1980, after attacking a woman named Donna Hensley, who was able to escape a hotel room and contacted authorities. Hensley told police that she was a prostitute and had been approached by a man requesting her services. Once at her motel room, the two began to argue, and the man ended up stabbing her 30 times with a knife before insulting her and fleeing. Stano was known to Hensley and local sex workers, and she was able to identify him to authorities. 2 months prior to Stano's arrest, in January, Mary Carol Maher, age 20, was abducted near the Daytona Beach boardwalk and was killed. Maher, a graduate of Mainland High School, was a student at a local community college and was about to enroll at Clemson University after getting a swimming scholarship. Paul Crowe and other investigators suspected the same man who killed Maher was the same man who had tried to kill Hensley. In an interrogating room, Crow sat across from Stano and laid some photographs on the table. "I took Mary Carol Maher's photograph, and I put it with her sister and 4 other photographs," Crow said. "I showed it to him and asked if he had ever seen any of these people before." Stano looked down the line and confirmed that he knew Maher, according to investigators. He put his finger on the photo and said, "I knew her, Mary Carol." Crow said. He used her name in the past tense. Welcome. Then more questions were asked by Crow, which led to Stano admitting that he began killing in the early 1970s, when he was in his 20s. However, he also claimed to have begun killing in the late 1960s, at the age of 18 too. Multiple girls had gone missing in Stano's area of residence at that time, but insufficient physical evidence was found when these claims were investigated almost 20 years later, and Stano was never charged. He was most active in Florida and New Jersey. Stano admitted to committing his first murder in New Jersey in 1969. He also confessed to having killed 6 other women in Pennsylvania. After moving to Florida, he may have murdered 30 or more women. Most of Stano's victims were women in unfortunate circumstances. All except 2 were Caucasian, and most of his known victims were between the ages of 16 and 25. By his 29th birthday, Stano was in prison for allegedly murdering 41 women. He was housed with fellow serial killer Ted Bundy until his execution in 1989. I couldn't find a lot of information on his victims, but here are a few. Janine Marie Ligotino, age 19, and Anne Eugenia Arsenio, age 17. Their bodies were found stabbed to death in a vacant lot in Gainesville, Florida, on March 21, 1973. Barbara Ann Bauer, age 16. She was found on September 6, 1973, in Bradford County, Florida. She had been abducted from a Holly Hill shopping mall and strangled to death. Kathy Lee Scharf, age 17, was a hitchhiker from Port Orange, whose body was found on January 19, 1974, by some hunters in the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge near Titusville, Florida. Kathy had been fatally stabbed and strangled between December 1973 and January 1974. Around November 24, 1974, a woman's decomposed body was found face down on an embankment about 50 feet behind the Interstate Mall in Altamonte, Florida. It seemed to police she had been killed in the same spot that her body was dumped. She had been stabbed twice and was also possibly sexually assaulted, as her underwear was pulled down and her shirt was pulled up. In 1982, Stano confessed to her murder. He said he had picked her up while she was hitchhiking on the Interstate 4, they had argued, and ended up murdering her. She still to this day remains unidentified and is known as the Seminole County Jane Doe. On January 17, 1975, the body of Nancy Jean Hurd, age 24, was found near Bulow Creek Road, just north of Ormond Beach. Her strangled body was posed and covered with tree branches. Nancy was last seen hitchhiking on Atlantic Avenue. Diana Lynn Valak, age 18, was found on May 19, 1975, in an empty lot in Wesley Chapel, Florida, at the intersection of State Road 54 and Livingston Road. Diana had unfortunately been shot to death. Susan Basile, age 12, was last seen in Port Orange, Florida, on June 10, 1975. According to Stano's 1982 confession, he picked her up as she got off a school bus, after then offering her a ride to the Starlight Skate Center on South Nova Road. Instead of taking her skating, he strangled her and left her body in a patch of woods covered with palm fronds. Sadly, her body was never found, and the site has since been built over. July 22, 1975, a fisherman discovered the body of 16-year-old Linda Ann Hamilton. She was strangled, drowned, and buried in the sand on a beach near Turtle Mound State Park in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. She was last seen walking down Atlantic Avenue alone. 21-year-old Emily Branches was strangled to death, and her body was found floating in Spruce Spring Creek in December 1975. She had been murdered earlier that month in Florida. Stano confessed to Emily's murder as well, among many others, in 1982. Susan Bickrest, age 24, was an aspiring cosmetologist who had just moved to Daytona Beach from Ohio and was kidnapped by Stano from her job on December 20th, 1975. 35-year-old Bonnie Williams, Hugh's body, was found on February 11th, 1976, approximately 200 yards south of CR 546, near the intersection of 546 and US Highway 27. She had been beaten on her head and face. Bonnie's 1974 brown and gold Cadillac sedan was found 50 feet away from her body. She was deaf in both ears and was last seen at an oyster bar in Winter Haven with an unknown white male. Ramona Cheryl Neal, age 18. Body was found in Tomoka State Park on May 29, 1976. Ramona's body had been covered with branches, possibly to hide it. 18-year-old Joan Gail Foster and 39-year-old Emily Grieve bodies were both found on September 28, 1977 and October 21, 1977 in Pasco County, Florida. Both women had been fatally shot multiple times. Then more questions. On October 28, 1977, 23-year-old Phoebe Winston was reported missing from her home in Plant City, Florida. She was last seen driving a 1964 light blue four-door Ford sedan, which was recovered on March 3, 1978, on Cleveland Heights Boulevard in Lakeland. On March 27, 1979, Phoebe's skeletal remains were sadly found in an open field northeast of Cleveland Heights Boulevard and Rolling Woods Lane in Lakeland. She had unfortunately been shot in the head. Kathleen Mary Muldoon, age 23, and in her third semester of woodworking classes at Daytona Beach Community College. A from school had gave her a ride to a local restaurant on November 11, 1977. Her body was later found in a drainage ditch after she had been beaten and shot to death. 35-year-old Sandra DuBose's body was found on a deserted road near Daytona Beach in Brevard County on August 5, 1978. Sandra had been shot to death also. 16-year-old Christine Goodson was found dead on April 15, 1979 in Pinellas County, Florida. Her cause of death still to this day has not been publicly revealed. What do y'all think her cause of death was? Let me know in the comments. 17-year-old Dorothy Williams' body was discovered stabbed and beaten to death behind the Holiday Inn on Northdale Mabry Highway in Tampa, Florida. On April 15, 1980, a young boy from Holly Hill, near Daytona Beach, found a human skull in a wooded area at the end of Primrose Lane. The boy took the skull home in a bag to show it to his parents, and his parents called the sheriff's office. Investigators searched the area for days, and eventually found more human remains. They were mostly skeletonized, and had on some pieces of clothing. Unsurprisingly, wild animals had pulled the corpse apart and scattered it. An autopsy later identified the victim as 26-year-old prostitute Toni Van Haddocks. Her cause of death was multiple stab wounds to the head. Ultimately, Stano was found guilty of 9 murders and received 8 life sentences and a death sentence, the latter of which was carried out by electric chair on March 23, 1998, in Florida State Prison. For his final meal, Stano asked Delmonico steak, a baked potato with sour cream and bacon bits, salad with blue cheese dressing, lima beans, a half-gallon of mint chocolate chip ice cream, and 2 liters of Pepsi. Stano's final statement proclaimed innocence and directed blame for his false confessions at the lead investigator, Paul Crowe. He stated, "I am innocent, I am frightened, I was threatened, and I was held month after month without any real legal representation. I confessed to crimes I did not commit." Can you y'all believe this guy? Well, that's going to just about wrap this one up, folks. Make sure if you like this video, you give that like button a little tap before leaving. Also, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way, you never miss a video. I would also love to hear you guys' feedback, so make sure you visit that comment section and tell me what was your take on this video. Love you guys, and see you in the next one.